Hey guys, Jeff Francoeur here. Thanks for listening to our content, and please like and subscribe.
Hey guys, this is Britt here, and welcome back to the Pure Athlete Podcast. We've got a great show for you today as we listen into part 2 of our recent conversation with new Falcons quarterback Kirk Cousins. We filmed this conversation a little over a week ago in front of a live audience of about 1,500 people at our Pure Athlete Live event. If you haven't heard part 1 yet, I encourage you to go back and listen as Kirk shares his youth sports story and the role his parents played and so much more. You're not going to want to miss that. Today, we drop into the middle of that conversation where he shares a lot of additional content, including his response and his thoughts about the Falcons' recent draft. He shares or takes questions from our live audience and shares some great answers and some great advice for young athletes, parents, and coaches. We think it's a great show, and you're going to really enjoy it. And if you do, I really would encourage you, it would help us tremendously if you would go back and leave a rating and a review on whatever platform you're listening to this on. It really helps us push our content out to a bigger and bigger audience around the country. With that said, I'll leave you to it, and we hope you enjoy the show.
Before we get to the podcast, if you have middle school or high school kids that play sports and you don't want to fundraise like me, we got you covered. My buddy Chris Carneal owns Booster. Chris?
We help schools and sports teams raise funds in a super fun and engaging way. In fact, the last 22 years, we've raised $750 million, and we can't wait to help you. Choose booster.com.
You know, Kurt, one thing I've loved about following you is the way your teammates talk about you, being a leader, all that's great stuff. You could see it on the Netflix show when you did it. It was awesome. Can you tell a lot of the kids in here why it's so important to be a good teammate, to come alongside your team?
Yes, I always view relating to teammates like going to the bank. And you want to make deposits into your bank account so that when you have to make a withdrawal, there's funds there in the account. And there's so many times throughout the day when I try to make deposits in teammates' lives, because there's going to come moments where, guys, I need you here. I need a withdrawal. I need everything you got here. And you don't want to look at your teammate and realize that the account says insufficient funds because you have not been making those deposits. And so every day I think about how can I make deposits in teammates' lives, and I think about being a question asker. And so whether it's at breakfast, at lunch, on the practice field, in the meeting room, asking questions of teammates, trying to get to know them better, and hear what makes them tick, what they love, what they dislike, and just try to be a support to them and let them know that I'm there for them. But build a relationship because it's so important. That people know how much you care before they care how much you know. And so that's really where my focus is. And it's amazing how often you get pulled away from that. You know, our flesh, our human inclination is to focus on me and what I need to do to keep my job. And I've learned the best way for me to be successful at my job is to take the focus off myself and put it on my teammates, my coaches, and see how can I help them. And my dad's always defined leadership as taking other people where they want to go, but they can't get there on their own. If they can get there on their own, they don't need a leader. They need a leader to get there. And so I think about coaches and teammates. How can I help them get where they want to go? Not where I want to go. How can I help them get where they want to go, but can't get there on their own? And that's really my role as the quarterback of the team, is to help them do that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love, it's easy for us to look at the quarterback position in sports, especially in the NFL, and translate it to, well, they have to be a great leader. But, that started way back in high school for you and across a lot of teams, not just the football team. Talk to us about how do you develop leadership, and where does that come from?
It's a good question. I read a lot of books to try to learn. So I try to stay active and keep growing my mind to learn what it takes. I love to read biographies and learn how other people have led. And you can learn from good examples and bad examples, right? So I try to learn from both. I also remember when I arrived at Michigan State, I walked into the weight room. I got there a little early, and a senior star player who I recognized came over and he said, "Why are you here so early? Once you get here, they own you. You should wait as long as you can before you show up because you kind of sign your life away." So I kind of thought, man, should I just leave? Like, why am I here? I don't know. I didn't feel very welcome. We're about halfway through the lift. Another player came over who I didn't recognize. He was a junior on the team, would eventually be a captain. He came over. He said, "Hey, Kirk, I heard what so-and-so said to you. Don't listen to them. I think the fact that you're here a little early is outstanding, and it's a great way to build a foundation. Great job." My entire countenance completely changed. And I told my dad that story. My dad said, "Kirk, the first guy's not a leader. The second guy is a leader." Okay, so you want to be like the second guy. And so that's an example of just trying to learn from bad examples and learn from good examples and say, I'm going to do what the good example did and not do what the bad example did, but I can learn from both. And then I go to the Bible. I think about how Jesus operated, how he asked questions, and I say, okay, if Jesus was the greatest question asker of all time and I want to be like him, I need to go become a better question asker of people. And so try to develop that skill. And it's amazing when you ask questions, what you learn about your teammates, what you learn about your coaches, and how you can better lead them because you ask questions. So those are a couple practical ways that I try, but it's constantly taking the focus off of yourself and putting it on other people, which is kind of just day one install for learning how to be a good person is, focus on other people.
You talked a lot about your dad, your mom, the impact. Who's a coach that you've had that's had a huge impact and why?
Yeah, well, outside of Mike Singletary.
Yeah, well, besides you getting him his job in the NFL.
Yeah, I've had some phenomenal coaches at all levels. It's difficult to pull one out, but I think back to my high school baseball coach and just his passion for the game of baseball, going above and beyond to do whatever it took to make our program better. I saw what it meant to chase excellence, to put in hard work. Because he was the guy telling me after basketball practice, hey, I want you to come back to the gym at night after homework to take BP, to take infield, because he believed that you have to put in the hours and the time. And so you want people like that. You need people like that, who are great coaches. And being a coach is a sacrificial thing. You really have to be selfless and care about the players. And what an incredible place to have an impact on people as a coach. No matter what the age. And so, I think a big reason why I'm sitting here talking to you is because I've had so many great coaches.
Kirk, take us through your game day routine when you wake up on a Sunday morning and then up till the end of the game.
Yeah, they talk about superstitions, and I always say, I'm not superstitious. I just like routine. And so for me, it's, I want to get up at a similar time. I want to do my similar things in the hotel room before I leave. I go down, eat a similar breakfast. I get on the same bus. I usually probably sit in the same, nearly the same spot on the bus. I go out for warm-ups at the same time, do the same throws, same routine to get my body ready, and just kind of go through those same paces. It's nothing out of the ordinary. I know that we all have our routines, and I think it's important that you don't get too caught up in routine because then it's inevitably going to get thrown off, and now is that going to affect the way you play? So you try to be flexible, but I also like knowing at kickoff that everything I did last week that enabled me to play well, I did again this week, and so I've given myself every chance to go play well. One thing we do before every game, after we come in from warm-up, so it's like the last thing before we go back out to start the game, in our pads and everything, we walk into the shower area, like the open area off in the side, and anybody who wants to, we just hold hands in a big circle or oval, and we pray. And fans don't see that. That's kind of behind the scenes, but I think it's a cool moment right before kickoff to just we call it prayer in the shower. And so, they may have the rap music blaring, the countdown's going. We know we're about to go out to do battle in 10 minutes, but we'll say, hey, prayer in the shower if anybody wants to join. And it's amazing how many guys will walk in there and we'll all hold hands in that moment and just pray and ask God to, obviously protect us and provide and give us the mental clarity and to remind us that we're playing for Him and not for other people. And so that's a kind of a tender moment there before kickoff usually.
So, Kurt, your faith's obviously a huge part of your life. And if you go back to your teenage years, your young years, we talk a lot with kids about not letting sports define them. So how do what would your advice be to
I'm
kids?
still working on that. You could ask my wife after a tough game, Kirk, this might mean a little too much to you, So I'm still working on that, but another book I'm reading right now.
Not to interrupt, you lost the playoff game and went home and read your kids a bedtime story.
Yeah. Exterior, I was doing that.
I love my kids, but I'm pretty sure I would not do that.
On the outside, I was reading them a story. On the inside, I was dying. But
great look for you.
Yeah, right. So no, I'm reading a book right now by Jamie Winship about identity and what it means to understand who you are, and that being a quarterback of the Atlanta Falcons is certainly a blessing. It's a great opportunity. It's what I do. If it's who you are or the sum of who you are, you got problems. And I remember playing at Notre Dame, my first ever start in college football away from Michigan State. So I go on the road. I grew up watching the movie Rudy. This is Notre Dame. We're on NBC. I'm living my dream. This is now Kirk Cousins is living a dream playing college football on national TV, and played well in the game, but we go down on the final drive. We're down by 3. We're in field goal range. The coach from the sideline pointed his temples to tell me, be smart, because he knew we have a field goal in the bag. We can go to overtime, but if you want to go for the touchdown to win the game, great. There's like 30 seconds left. Well, he goes, be smart. Famous last words. And the next play, I threw an interception. I got hit on the play, get hit down. I remember getting up, pulling grass out of my face mask because I got hit so hard. And I'm listening to the deafening sound of 80,000 people in Notre Dame Stadium cheering my biggest failure ever in athletics. And I remember after the first thought of, oh no, that just happened, my second thought was, thank you, God, that my life is not football. Because if my life is football, it just completely crumbled. But I've built my life on a foundation that is bigger than football. And so I have hope. So I can walk to this sideline with a bunch of people looking at me thinking, what did you just do? And I have hope that the best is still yet to come, and that there's more out there, and that God is sovereign. He's got a plan, and he allowed this to happen for a purpose, and he's not going to waste it. And I don't feel good on the bus, but I have a hope. And I think that's partly, again, why when we lose a playoff game to the Giants 2 years ago, I can go home and I can read a book to my kids and I can put them to bed and we can sing On Christ the Solid Rock I Stand, All Other Ground is Sinking Sand. Because I've lived that. And I've had to live it again and again and again. And so when I made Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 my life verse and kind of signed up for, all right, I'm going to trust him, I think God took me up on it. And I think he kind of allows challenges to come my way to say, all right, the truth of this verse, you going to hold on to it, or are you going to doubt? And so even now, with the Falcons drafting a quarterback out of nowhere, just 4 weeks ago, I was reminded again, Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. I'm going to trust the Lord, and he'll lead. And it doesn't mean that it's going to go necessarily the way I and my flesh want it to go, but I'm going to trust him and let him lead. He hasn't failed me yet. And so that's really been my journey, and it will continue to be because he's on the throne and I'm not.
Amen.
So I want to have a little fun here. I got 5 rapid questions for you, rapid fire. Who was your QB idol growing up?
Well, what's funny about the QB idol thing is they were still playing when I got to the league. So I go out there and I'm like, I'm playing against Peyton Manning? I'm playing against Tom Brady? I watched these guys in college and in their pro careers. I was in middle school. I was in high school, with their poster on the wall, and now I got to play them. It just didn't feel right, and it didn't go well for me. But so I guess it was kind of fun to be able to play them, but also not, because they were a lot better than me. But it was those guys. It was Drew Brees. It was Peyton Manning. It was Tom Brady. And now that they've retired, I've found, I reach out to them and I say, hey, I want to learn from you, because I know when you were playing, you got to keep things secret. But now that you're done, I want all the secrets, and talking about Jesus being a question asker, I go to I'm just going to ask you questions. I'm going to wear you out, and I want all the answers.
Who do you not want to see on the other side of the line on defense?
I always get asked, what's the biggest hit you've ever taken? And I say, guys, when they're 6'6", 300 pounds and run a 4.6, they all hurt. There's not one guy who hurts more. I remember I got hit against Alabama one year, got hit in the back, and I got knocked out of the game. And it was like being in a car accident. You barely get up your back. You can barely get out of bed the next day. And so that one stands out. Courtney Upshaw is probably the biggest hit I ever took. But, when you see Aaron Donald there for the Rams, and you see Chris Jones for the Chiefs, and you see J.J. Watt in his prime for the Texans, you say to the center, you're sliding to him, okay? We got 4 hands on that guy, right? We got a double team going to him. I don't ever want him one-on-one. And so that's really the focus, is making sure we get 4 offensive lineman hands on those types of guys.
What is your favorite stadium you've played in?
I love the history of Lambeau Field, but then I tore my Achilles there last year. So Lambeau probably has a different meaning for me now. But I like going to Dallas. I think that's a fun place. I grew up in Michigan, so playing in Detroit there at Ford Field is fun for me. But Mercedes-Benz Stadium is now going to become the new favorite, I got to say.
Good answer. Good answer. Smart man. Up to this point, what's your favorite career moment you've had?
Well, so this gives me a chance to make out a point that I always make when I talk to young people is I've had the chance to live my dream playing college football, and I've been able to live a dream playing professional football. I used to, at summer camp, look up at the stars, you see a shooting star, you make a wish. The wish I would make was, I wish I could play professional football. And so I am living a dream, and I don't take that lightly. But just the fact that, I get to do that every day is such a privilege, and I just feel so fortunate to get to do it.
Awesome. So what is your handicap right now in golf?
I'm about a 12. I don't get out enough between Achilles rehab and 2 boys and moving to a new city, but I do hope to play a lot more golf up ahead, and certainly when I'm done playing football.
Well, awesome. My last one for you is the one I've been telling these guys I wanted to ask you. So when we said you were coming to talk, a bunch of my buddies sent me pictures, of course, of the famous meme. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. A lot of the kids might not know, but there was a great meme from a highlight of Kirk when he was with Washington and he won a football game. And he came walking in and had some choice words. So I need the background story.
Yeah, so, I had talked about, adversity. We were 2-4. I had thrown more interceptions than touchdowns. I was kind of on my last chance there in Washington. It was my 4th year. My contract was expiring after that year. It was kind of now or never. And I had a friend come over to the house, and I try to not pay attention to media at all because it's usually not helpful. And this friend came over, and he shouldn't have told me, but he said, yeah, so-and-so at the network said that the Kirk Cousins experiment is over. And so you're done. And I said, oh, really? Yeah, I feel like it is too, maybe, So then we go to play the game on Sunday at home. We're 2-4, like I said, and we get down 24-0. And to get down 24-0, I got hit, fumbled. They picked it up and returned it for a touchdown. And again, I was pulling grass out of my face mask as I walked to the sideline, listening this time to boos in our own stadium. And I sat down on the bench, and I remember thinking, maybe I'm not cut out for this. Maybe my ceiling is to be a backup, and that's okay. But I got to be okay with that. But this is not going well. And suddenly we scored, and then we came back, and next thing you know, we had the largest comeback in team history, and we won 31-30. And I was walking back through the tunnel, obviously excited, and I saw the logo for the network of the person who had made that comment a few days earlier, that the Kirk Cousins experiment was over. And I saw the logo, and there was a person who worked for that network standing there, and it wasn't the person who made the comment. It was just a person standing there, and I pointed at him, and I said, you like that. You like that. In other words, you may not like me, you may not want to see me succeed, but you like that, because we came back and won. And so that kind of became a rallying cry. And to this day, when people doubt me, which happens all the time, that's kind of the mantra is, you like that.
That was awesome. It's still one of my
Go
favorites.
watch it on YouTube.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
all
you got to
over.
watch it. It's awesome. We got about 5 or 6 minutes left with Kirk real quick, but we want to, if a few kids or anybody got a few questions, and then I'm going to wrap us up with one final one before we let them go. He's got practice again tomorrow morning.
Thanks, Frenchie. Yeah, real quickly, I'm going to start off while Holly goes to that side over there. There's an age-old debate about becoming a professional athlete, and is it nature, is it nurture, is it somewhere in between? I just thought maybe the 4 of you could stand up real quick and we could try to figure out who are the professional athletes.
That's okay. It's all good.
Well done.
That's brutal,
I'll
Evan.
pay you later for saying
Thank you,
that.
Evan. I appreciate that.
You
Thank
got
you.
it. Holly, where are you, Holly?
Okay, I got 3 boys right here, and they are very excited.
My friend might go to school with Kirk Cousins' son. I go to Mount Pisgah.
Okay, that's cool. Who's got a question over here? Good job, buddy. Good job. How about an adult? Is there an adult in the room with a question?
They probably say that because my son goes to school and tells everybody, my dad plays for the Falcons. Like, Cooper, it's okay. We can just tone down.
I ironically also go to Mount Pisgah.
You also go to school with my son.
I do have a question.
Yes.
So me and one of my friends are trying to start a girls flag football team. Do you have any advice for us?
Well, first of all, you made a great decision. I think flag football is as fun as it gets. I think it's outstanding, and I think you're going to love it. So my advice would be start it, get as many girls as you can, and I bet if you get started, I bet your team's going to grow because I think other people who didn't join are going to see how fun it is and want to join. So I highly encourage it. Some of my best memories are playing flag football. Plus, after a lot of years of getting hit, I like flag football. You don't get hit. You don't get hit as much.
Holly, I've got Caden over here who has a fantastic question. Caden, what's your question for Kirk?
Who is your biggest inspiration as a kid?
Well, I think it kind of has different layers. So spiritually, I think my biggest inspiration would be Jesus and wanting to be like him and the WWJD, what would Jesus do, thinking like that as a kid. I think then secondly, you look to your parents, and I looked to my dad and my mom and tried to follow their example, and I was fortunate that I had a great example there, right there with them. And then I think after that, you look around and you try to find whether it's high school varsity athletes in your town or professional athletes or college athletes who you aspire to be. And I kind of looked at someone like a Drew Brees or a Peyton Manning and said, the way they conduct themselves, the way they work, the way they play, that's what I want my game to look like. And so I started trying to pattern after them. But I think you have kind of different layers there, and it's good to have all three.
Hey, I've got Will over here, and he's got a great question.
Yeah, thank you, Kurt. You mentioned your dad was your coach for a lot of sports growing up, and I don't know, with your sons, what your future might hold in that or desires in that. But what would your advice be from those experiences on sort of navigating that really difficult line of being a father and perhaps a coach of your own kids?
I wish I could give you a clear answer. My boys are 6 and 5, so I don't think I've had to navigate the line yet. I think it's going to be interesting. I think, we had a coach in college say you treat everyone fairly but not the same. And I think that applies to parenting your kids. Each kid is wired differently by God. And so one kid, I think, may want the coaching, and when you give them all the coaching, they're going to say, give me more. And you might have another kid who the second you coach them, they feel threatened. And so you have to, I think, find the balance, not just within the family, but each individual kid. How do I approach each kid as to what they respond best to? And I think that's true of any coach and any team, and then also true as a parent. So I know I'll parent Cooper, coach Cooper slightly different than I coach and parent Turner. I want the same result, I want the same outcome, but they're going to require a little bit of a different approach. And I think being aware of that will be really important for me.
All right, we've got Max over here with a fantastic question. Max, how you doing?
Good.
What's your question for Kirk?
Who is your favorite teammate you played with and why?
My favorite teammate I've played with. Great question, first of all. I've played with a lot of good ones. That's why I'm still sitting here, is because I played with so many great teammates. I'll bring up the one from the weight room. My first year at Michigan State, when I first showed up, Justin Kershaw was his name. And I ended up later on getting voted captain at Michigan State 3 times. And when people would ask me, how did you get voted captain 3 times? I would say, I just did what Justin Kershaw would do. And I guess it got me voted captain. I don't know. So I always say Justin Kershaw is probably the greatest teammate I ever had, just because of the example he set for me, not just as a player or as a worker, but as how to treat teammates, because I knew how he made me feel. And I thought, man, if he can make me feel like that, and I could do that to other people, I wonder what this locker room could look like in time. And so I owe Justin a great deal.
Let's get one more question.
I've got Zealand over here. He is a football player and a sophomore. Zealand, what's your question?
So I've been talking with my coaches and my dad about going to the second level and playing college, and I was gonna ask what's your what tips do you have for playing at the next level?
Great question. Even if I had not been offered a scholarship, and if I had maybe tried to play a Division III school where there's no scholarships, or walked on somewhere, the experience I had being recruited or trying to be recruited was phenomenal. My dad and I would road trip to different places. My mom would come sometimes. We got to meet coaches. We got to see different parts of the country. I mean, I look back on that with the fondest of memories that I got to experience that. And so first of all, I think the college process, even if you don't know where it's going to end up, I think just that process of deciding where to go to college is a really enriching experience, and I would, try to enjoy that. But as far as, tips, I think you want to focus on where you are right now and work really hard at what you're doing right now, be the best you can be. Listen to good counsel you have around you in your school, in your home, and apply that. And I think if you do that, good things will happen. But you also, like me, you got to trust God and kind of allow him to lead you where he wants you to go. But I'll also say as one final thought, I've been able to play pro football now for a long time. I will tell you, the most fun I've ever had on an athletic field was Friday night under the lights for my hometown in high school football. Doesn't get any better than that. And so while there's amazing fun when you throw a Hail Mary on national TV in front of millions of people, or you win a big comeback game and Monday Night Football, that's fun. But it does not top throwing against Greenville High School, hitting the 2-point conversion to beat them and have your student section at your high school rush the field. That is as good as it gets. And so for all of you who are aspiring high school athletes or are high school athletes, I would understand and enjoy what you have coming and what's going on right now, because even if God blesses you many years beyond that, it doesn't get any better than playing for your high school in front of your buddies and with your buddies. So enjoy that.
See, Katie, did you hear that? Now you can stop getting on me on Friday night when I'm watching GPTV and locking into the game of the week.
I'll be right there with Jeff watching local football.
I got one final question, and kids, listen up. Okay, for Kirk, it's kind of a two-part question. I want you to look at the kids in here, kind of give them your advice as they're going through their youth sports journey, and then secondly, to finish, to the parents, your advice for them.
Sure. Well, parents, I'll start with the parents. I'm a parent now. The Bible talks about train up a child in the way they should go. And so I would challenge you to, your job as a parent, part of your job as a parent, is God put you there to observe your kids' natural wiring and say, how can I steer them in that direction to sort of allow that natural wiring to flourish? Speak into it, encourage them, identify when they're doing something well, identify when they're not doing something well. But to really, my son, he loves building Legos, he loves building forts. And so when we go to bed at night, I say, Turner, you're such a great builder. I love the way you built that fort. I can't wait to see what you're going to build someday, down the road as you get older. Think of the cool things you're going to get to build or you're going to build with your mind. And so I try to speak that into him because I believe God wired him to be that way. And so I want to see what that could become. And so as parents, I'd say, identify the giftings your son or daughter has, the skills they have. Is it hand-eye coordination? Maybe they're big, fast, and strong, which I wasn't. But to then say, hey, you have these giftings in this area. Why don't we try this activity? I think it's a great fit. And then obviously it's up to the child to see if they enjoy it or want to take to it. But I think many times we as kids don't know what we don't know. And so we need a parent to kind of help steer us towards our natural wiring without us even realizing it. And then kids, I would say what I want of my kids, and so I say that's the kids in this room, is I do not care if my sons are great at sports. I don't care if they make the varsity football team or basketball team, or if they make the team but sit on the bench. That's just fine. What I want them to do is to not only be a selfless teammate, but I want them to be tough. I believe strongly that tough times don't last, but tough people do. And so I want my kids to be resilient, and a word we use for it that was used earlier tonight is grit. I want my kids to have grit. And so when life gets hard, because it's going to get hard, I'm coming off a torn Achilles. I got a scar like this on my ankle. I broke my ankle in high school. I've been benched. I've been booed. Okay, I've broken ribs. Life will get tough, but tough times don't last, and tough people do. And so I just challenge all the young people to be resilient, and when life does hit you in the mouth a little bit and you say, ooh, I don't like how this feels. I don't like how hard this homework is. I don't like how hard the piano lessons are. I don't like the weight room and how it makes me feel. I would say, no, now's the time to lean in. Now's the time to keep going, because tough times don't last, but tough people do. And so you show your resiliency and you develop your grit in those moments when it doesn't feel right, but it is the right thing to do. And so I just challenge you to make sure you do what is right, not just what feels right. And if you do that, I think you'll look back at my age at 35 years old and you'll say, I made right choices. I made right decisions, and I like where this has gone.
Man, that's a great way to end it. We cannot thank you enough, your family, for coming out tonight. I know you get pulled 1,000 different directions, and I hope for everybody in here too is going to have a nice appreciation for what Kirk not only is going to do on the football field, but who he is off the field, and that it means a lot more and what he's doing to the community. So we thank you for spending our time, and good luck at an early practice tomorrow morning.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. It means a lot that you'd be here. Thank you.
Hey guys, Jeff Rancourt here. Thanks for checking out Pure Athlete, and subscribe to our channel on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you go to listen to our podcast.